Hello students, I want to continue the video I just posted about how to calculate a mean using Excel, making sure to calculate all the way to 4 decimal places. I want to continue talking about that example, so I'm going to share my screen with you, and I would like for you to, if you're starting new, to watch the first video about how to create a mean so you could follow along and not get lost along the way. So here I go. I'm going to share my screen with you. This is what we created making video 1 about how to create your calculate a mean using Excel. Next, we want to, I'm going to insert we want to learn how to calculate variance and standard deviation using Excel. So let's do this together. If we think about what this means, PEMDAS. When we think about that, hopefully you've learned that in the past. It's our order of operations. And that means that we always calculate in what first? The P stands for parentheses. And then we will do exponents. And this formula that I will go over with you today is you following the PEMDAS order of operations. So if we have our 10 participants who completed the Beck Depression Inventory, we made up these scores and the range of scores here. So these are our 10 different inmates. These are their scores on depression. But we want to know not only their mean score, which is pretty low, but we want to know not the mean score of the distribution, but how their scores spread apart. Is everyone's depression level about the same? Is it all across the board? Let's go ahead and learn a little bit more about our people's scores. So the very next thing that we want to do, using parentheses, we want to take our X value, so each person's score, minus our X bar, which is their mean score. I'll show you how to do that in Excel. We want to go to our empty cell next to our first person, type in equal, take their score, minus our mean score, and enter. We're going to do that again. X minus X bar, enter, equal X minus X bar, enter, equal X minus X bar. I'm going to keep doing this. Making sure to not make a mistake. Equal X minus X bar equals. All right, so we call these the X minus X bar. We call this our deviation scores about the mean. Deviation means subtraction, so we subtract each score from the mean. Our deviation scores about the mean. If we sum these together, so we type in equal, hit function of sum, and calculate these values and hit enter, we should get 0 because all we're doing is backtracking our mean formula. We're not done. We don't really do anything with our deviation scores about the mean. Next step of our formula, we take our X minus X bar value and we square it. And so that means we need to take our column for X minus X bar, our deviation scores about the mean, we need to square it. So we need an equal sign, click on our previous score times our previous score, enter. X times itself equal our X times itself equal X times itself. Oops. See if it'll copy my formula over, and it did. Now we have our squared, now that we have our x minus x bar, and we have it around our parentheses, x minus x bar squared, we call this our squared deviations about the mean. We're not done. We need to sum this. We need to sum this column. So we pick our values, and now we have our sum of squared deviations about the mean, or sum of squares, or SS, which is the numerator for our standard deviation, our variance and standard deviation formulas. There is one problem here. We need to format these cells to calculate to 4 decimal places, just to make sure that we're being as accurate as possible. We'd like to do that throughout our entire formula. So let's go ahead and do that. Format, number, 4 decimal places. Okay, so now that we have, if we take our sample variance formula, we are going to have our sum of squares divided by our n minus 1. So let's take our sum of squares. We're going to take our sum of squares divided by n minus 1, which would be 10 minus 1 divided by 9. Our sample variance then is 49.2889. We are not done. To get our sample standard deviation, we need to get the square root of our sample variance. Well, all right, so we want to then now go to equal, go to our function line, find square root, which is SQRT, by our variance, our sample variance, and now we have our standard deviation. From this simple calculation, we are able to get our mean, our sum of squares, our sample variance, and our sample standard deviation among our sample. I will end it here. I want you to practice doing this on your own computer using Excel. You can also use Pearson MyLab and the StatCrunch feature. I hope this was beneficial to you. If you have additional questions, I'd be happy to Zoom with you one-on-one, or you can come and meet with me during office hours or meet with the tutor. Thank you for your time.